Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa
Alaikum
salatu wa
salam.
salamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Yes, yes.
Welcome to the Voice of Islam, the special Friday podcast. Alhamdulillah, with me today I have Sheikh Hatim. How are you, Sheikh Hatim?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. It's very hot here, but I'm sure it's getting colder in Oman. Colder
Surprisingly, this morning it was sunny, and
as well?
suddenly it was raining and pouring, cats and dogs, as they say.
What,
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
alhamdulillah. What's the temperature there at the moment?
The temperature is around 21.
Okay, that's summer, Sheikh.
No, it's winter for us. It's winter for us. Alhamdulillah.
Now, Sheikh, alhamdulillah. So today, inshallah, we're gonna listen to a program from
Yes.
BBC Hard Talk, and this program was recorded on the 15th of February 2018. So
Oh, an old video.
roughly, very old video. So essentially, we talk in a 6 years old video, inshallah.
Okay.
So this is
Sure.
before October the 7th, 2023. So, so inshallah, let's watch the video together, and then we'll reflect on that, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about it as well, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Against what the IDF is doing.
Breaking the silence, I think, in any context isn't easy. Definitely in the Israeli society. It's not a natural thing in that sense to break that kind of silence. But I think that myself, like over 1,000 soldiers that are part of Breaking the Silence, former soldiers, it was much more difficult for me to keep my silence than to break it. And it's true that there are prices, but the truth of the matter is that I care too much for my country and my society to keep silent. And although there are pushbacks, we will persevere.
You broke the silence after you'd put your uniform away and left the IDF. Were you silent while you were a serving soldier?
Well, I didn't feel that I was silent. I remember occasions where I brought up what I was doing in the nights in Nablus and Jenin. When I was back home, I thought that I wasn't silent when I asked my soldiers what they thought about these operations. But it actually took me a while after my service, where I actually thought that I could put my military service behind me, to realize that I myself was also silent, that I myself was also not really frank when I was looking myself in the mirror.
So you were, to use that phrase, a good soldier. You followed orders and you did things which, and I'm now asking rather than stating, I'm guessing you did things which your moral conscience told you should not be doing, but you did them anyway and did not speak out against them.
That's true. I mean, I was a sergeant of a snipers team, and one of the routine missions that we carried out in Nablus, in Jenin, or in the surrounding areas of those two cities was a mission that we called a straw widow. Straw widow, when you take over a Palestinian home, every house in the West Bank actually has a number. Each and every house has a number. So we would open up the maps and look at the specific house that looked into the right place that we had to enter, a city center or a road. And after we would verify that the house has the best parameters, windows, and geographical area, we made sure the people in the house were innocent. So we would enter a house of an innocent Palestinian home in the middle of the night. The first missions that I carried out, the adrenaline was pumping. The second, the third, the fourth, when it started to calm down, I realized I was sitting in someone's living room, bedroom, children's room. That was when it started to break.
And you are dealing with people in fear.
Constant fear, but I have to say the fear is two-sided. I was also full of fear. But I would say that what motivated me eventually to break my silence was the piercing eyes of young Palestinians when I was barging into their house in the middle of the night. I could always justify it to myself, but those eyes, the anger, their fear, was what eventually helped me overcome that. A house of a physician in Nablus, for example, that I entered in the middle of the night, taking him, his wife, and his daughter, and pushing them in a room. If they wanted to use their bathroom or their kitchen or use their phone, they need permission from me. That specific house in Nablus stayed with me for a while because that physician himself was kind enough and generous enough to sit down and explain to me what it means to be a Palestinian. And that experience, when I was sitting there in a house in Nablus, made me realize what I'm actually doing as a soldier to millions and millions of people, me, myself, not someone else, not a different unit of NER. And I thought that I was a good moral soldier, but I was actually helping entrench the occupation in that sense.
That's just it's a lot to take there, Sheikh. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
I don't know where to start. So as you know, brothers and sisters, so this brother Avner is a soldier, he's an IDF soldier, and he said he used to head an elite sniper team, and he at night time he just go to random houses that just pick, and then they pick one houses, and then they make sure that the house that they go to are innocent people only. And one of the houses that stuck in his mind was about the a physician, I presume is a doctor, and that he went into, and he had a good discussion, and that's when he started to think a little bit more. So a couple of points that we can learn from that. Number one, so Sheikh Hatim, before October 7, there was something else that happened, right? And they were talking here about in the West Bank, Nablus, you know?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. The first thing I think we should address is what you stated. The date. The date of the interview is 2018.
February 2018, yes.
February 2018. And before, much before the 7th of October, where everybody's claiming that, the beginning was the 7th of October. And the second thing that we need to note is it has nothing to do with Gaza.
Yes.
This was in the West Bank.
Yeah.
And you can see exactly what the IDF soldiers used to do in the West Bank, which has nothing to do with Gaza, has nothing to do with Hamas. And yet, this is what they were doing. And specifically in their own words, when they say we were targeting innocent people. We didn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the ones who said that they are innocent people. We're hearing it for the first time. I'm personally hearing it for the first time. And if it wasn't for them to say it, we wouldn't know that they were targeting innocent people.
And Sheikh, just to be very clear, this is not from some random interview. This is on BBC. So mainstream as it can be. Agreed? We all agree on that?
Yeah.
So this is a mainstream media, and we're not twisting any words. We are using exactly what's been recorded on BBC.
And the second thing that we need to note is fitra, the natural inclination of any human being, regardless of who you are, what your upbringing is. You will always have the moral compass in you. Something inside you will tell you that this is something wrong. And those who do not deny this feeling inside them, they will eventually find the truth and set themselves free. This gentleman, very clearly, he said there are consequences for us breaking the silence and moving out of the IDF and exposing the truth. But we are determined, regardless of the consequences, to make the truth be revealed. Why would someone have a unique job and everything suddenly break all of that and force himself into a very awkward situation with his government? Why would he go through all of this trouble, for the truth? And this shows you sometimes there are certain people who are very unique in their character, and they will fight for the truth no matter what happens. And we have an example of the American soldier who just burnt himself in front of the Israeli embassy. People like those who believe in the truth, and they would go, regardless of what means they take, whether we agree or we don't agree with them, but they will always stick with the truth, no matter even if it costs if it costs them their life. So, subhanallah, and it is very, very interesting interview.
Yeah, you mentioned, you brought up about what the event that happened a few days ago with the American soldier. There's a lot of backgrounds and chatters about the whole thing and why he did what he did, but he must be quite desperate to decide to do what he did, and out of desperation, because for him, how this is gonna end, and he doesn't want to be part of that. So it's an extreme form. I mean, obviously, we don't support that, Sheikh. I mean, this is harming yourself. It's not something in Islam as well. We don't agree with that. But he must be so desperate that he has to do something, and that's the first thing that comes to his mind. And he's a young guy, and it's very sad how it ends. But it's also very powerful, and I hopefully, people are becoming more aware of it. I understand there are more protests now happen, especially if those are the veterans of the American veterans. They're now doing a protest in the name of that brother. So,
Dr. Firdaus, there's a very important point that we shouldn't miss is when he said that the incident of the physician's house,
yeah,
it stayed with him.
Mhm.
And the reason why it stayed with him is because the physician took time to explain to him. And this is the method of da'wah, calling people to the truth, even if it's your enemy. I want you to imagine the scenario of this man, the physician, sitting in the middle of the night in his house or asleep, and the soldiers suddenly barging into his house, threatening his family, and still he is calm and he has the heart to sit and explain to the soldier. And now we are reaping the fruits of that initiative. The soldier had a change of heart, and now he's taking it further, and he has a voice now. And he said there are almost 1,000 soldiers that are now under this organization to speak up. So you see the little effort the doctor did, despite the difficult circumstances. The seed was planted, and the fruits are being reaped now. So we should not, close the doors in front of the enemy, that it is the end of it. They are evil people and they can never be guided. You never know. Allah might guide anyone. So we should always put the effort, no matter what the circumstances are, because many of these people are deceived throughout their lives since childhood. And when you tell them the truth, they will recognize that it is the truth.
That's a very good point, yeah, Sheikh. I think there's a lot of videos like that on the social media. A lot of brainwashings, a lot of, like you said, things are being mentioned that wasn't accurate, right? It's all propaganda stuff. And subhanAllah, the thing is, we gotta give a chance. Everyone have the chance to learn the truth, and we have the obligation to give the truth. If they were not to take it, that's fine. But we have to try our best to give that truth. We have to try our best to actually say something about it. If people don't take it, that's okay, just like anything else. So let's just continue, inshallah. Let's just do a little bit more, unless you have other things to say, Sheikh.
Let's continue with the video, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay.
Are you saying that the very act of going into the house of an innocent Palestinian family to you was and is totally unacceptable and corrosive and doing serious damage to the sort of moral values of Israel's army and indeed the nation state? Or are you saying that that's just the tip of an iceberg of behavior, much of which is much worse than that?
Yeah, I would say that when you look at the past 50 years, entering the 51st year, you look at the past 13 years that we've been collecting testimonies from soldiers, then you have different kinds of testimonies. So like the straw widow that I just talked about, I could talk about the flying checkpoint, or entering houses for searching, or checkpoints, or making our presence felt, instilling fear into the Palestinian population, or the actual orders were instilling the sense that they're being chased, showing there's a new sheriff in town. There's a constant system.
It's the imposition of a basic power dynamic. The message being, we're in control, we're in charge of you and your lives, and we, in essence, can do what we want.
That's true. And I would say that in that, you have mundane routine operations of just having standing in a checkpoint or walking through a city center or a village, and you can have cases in this military occupation of violence, of destruction of property, of humiliations of Palestinians. We've collected dozens of these testimonies. That's not the problem of the occupation, it's a symptom. The problem is the idea of controlling millions of people by force indefinitely, and that's where the state of Israel is going. That's where the government is actually taking us, an indefinite military occupation.
But this, in the end, what you're outlining as your critique of what is happening in Israel, and that the IDF as the agent.
I think we can stop that a little bit with regards to what he said. Like we say, I go back to our first point that we talk about. So before October the 7th, he mentioned there's a testimony what happened 13 years ago. This is from 2018. 51 years ago. So hold on, guys. So have we erased the history here? Have we forgot?
I want you to notice something throughout this interview and the discussion.
Yes.
Resistance was not brought up.
Mm.
They were not working against resistance
Correct.
or people who were fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually instilling fear
Yes.
in these people. He said randomly we just, go to checkpoints or walk in the village or humiliate Palestinians. This is what we do. There is no resistance, there is no riot, there is no, violence that requires us to go there and, establish law and order. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's just we feel like doing it and we're doing it. Our orders were just, feel free and do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, yeah.
And this shows you the amount of aggression they have on the Palestinians on a daily basis. And let us remind our audience again, this has nothing to do with Gaza.
Yep.
These people are operating in the West Bank, and this is what they're doing on a daily basis. And now that their brothers in Gaza have stood up for their rights on the 7th of October and decided to stop this humiliation, now the entire world is looking at the resistant as terrorists, as people who, and I'm surprised the media people who are saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. Defending yourself from what? You can see throughout the interview, you are the aggressors. So you're defending yourself from what exactly? It's very ironic and strange the way they put it.
And not just that, Sheikh. I mean, one other thing as well, like just a little bit more than the history side of things. Just remember when what happened in Europe, in World War II, what happened back then. Remember that they were nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go, and the Palestinians welcomed them to their house. At that time, none of the European countries take the people there. Right? So it was never a problem. So it was never an issue. And imagine if you constantly making like what the guy said, instilling the fears, scare tactics, and what did you create the next generation? Don't you traumatize that generation? And then so 5-10 years, what's going to happen to that person? They're not gonna, they're gonna grow up hating whatever happens around it. And now, of course, at one point something gonna fight back. And this is the terrible part. That's why I respect him for speaking up, right? I respect him for speaking up and be honest about it, because this, they say the country is going down a dangerous path, a constant occupation, as he mentioned. That was his word, and that is terrible because you're not going to create harmony. There will be no peace in that situation. How can you be peace in that situation?
I mean, when they say that they need to defend themselves, they should defend themselves from Europeans. The Europeans are the ones who oppressed the Jews throughout history, and they were prosecuted. So if you need to defend yourself, if you want to know the true enemy, it's not the ones who open their homes and doors for you when you were, when you were eliminated in Europe and burnt and killed and tortured. Yeah, the Arabs and the Muslims are the ones who open their homes for you to have a dignified life. And the thanks that you are giving the Arabs and the Palestinians today is you're stabbing them at the back and you're betraying them. And you are setting a classical example of how you return those who are kind to you. So this is the thanks that we did. This is the thanks that we get. I mean, it didn't start with Palestine only. You remember when in Andalusia you were prosecuted and you lived under the Muslim rule for 800 years and you were dignified and you had a good life and you even had positions in the government, in the Muslim government. You forgot all of that. You forgot about the protection of Muslims for the Jews in Egypt, in Yemen, in Morocco, in Yemen, and in Iran. And today you think we are the enemy and you're claiming that we want to eliminate you. What nonsense are you saying? And honestly speaking, I assume more example of such soldiers will come up and speak up the truth by the end of this war, inshallah, because what they are asked to do is inhumane and they can never sleep again after going through what they did in Gaza especially. Allahu A'lam.
Let's continue a little bit more, inshallah.
Of occupation is doing is essentially political. I mean, you're saying, if I understand you correctly, that the very act and policy of occupation is corroding Israel's value and must end. But the truth is, time after time after time, the Israeli public votes in elections for parties which sustain and believe in that occupation.
I mean, that's true, but when you look at this democracy, it's basically a democracy that is controlling and ruling millions of people that don't have a right or a say in that democracy. So between the river and the sea, you have about 13 million people where half of them do not go and elect anyone. So a big part of our mission, and that's where we spend, as Breaking the Silence, the vast majority of our energy and our time is speaking to our fellow citizens all across Israel. We're actually the leading organization in the anti-occupation camp in the sheer numbers of people that we meet. But we also recognize that the houses that we entered were not houses of Israelis. And the occupation is not an internal Israeli issue. It's an issue that affects millions of Palestinians, and obviously the international community is involved as well.
Yeah, and I want to come back to the politics of this in some detail, but just to stick for now with testimony, because Breaking the Silence is all about gathering.
Let's just sing that part for a moment there. Like I like the question asked, that the interviewer asked, but people vote for this government, so somehow that make it acceptable. So if everybody vote for something, I mean, isn't that what happened in World War II? Isn't that what happened in Germany? So we're gonna say that's okay to carry on? Hypocrisy.
This is the problem with democracy, Sheikh. Democracy says that the vote of the majority. Now here you've eliminated millions of the majority.
Yes.
The Palestinians, they did not vote for this government. They did not vote for this occupation. They did not vote to be prisoners. So what democracy are you talking about? And the other problem with democracy is you don't have a higher moral compass like God. So if you don't have a higher moral compass, then whatever the majority comes up with, they agree, then it's okay to do. So today, if the majority of the people decide that, you know what, we're going to have intercourse with little children, then everybody agrees, then it makes it okay. That is democracy. But in the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rule does not work like that. The election is among the elite in intellectual, pious people who knows what is good for the society. And at the same time, any principle or ruling or law is presented for the people to follow, it goes by the criteria of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is the final check whether we should do this or not. And it's not just about the majority. The majority will claim a lot of things, will want a lot of things. You'll just implement everything that they want. This is not fair. What about the minorities? And this is what is happening, where he says that, you know, every now and then the government is being re-elected. Which government? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I just think the person who asked that question didn't even think. He didn't even flinch to ask that question, and to say somehow making it's okay because it's been voted that way. I mean, I think I'll just I don't know what more to say on that. We'll continue, inshallah.
Together the voices of soldiers, former soldiers, who are no longer prepared to be silent about what they've seen. I just want you to be very clear with me about some of the other behaviors, because you've talked about the day-to-day dull routines of occupation, but the other behaviors, like, for example, testimony about looting, stealing, Israeli soldiers stealing from inside Palestinian family homes. Other testimony about deliberate acts of violence, striking youths, striking people in their own homes, beating them. Also firing rubber bullets, transgressing the limits that are supposed to be imposed on the firing of those bullets and undoing the packaging so they do more damage. All of these aren't just about the routines of occupation. They suggest to me an army that has within it significant numbers of soldiers who want to do bad things.
I mean, you can choose to look at it like that. I think it's more complex.
But isn't it important to be honest that there are Israeli soldiers, if this testimony is true, many say it's not, but if it's true, there are people in the IDF doing very bad things.
I mean, yeah, I could say more than that. I was one of those soldiers doing very bad things. I saw it with my own eyes. I was part of it. I was violent. And I think in that sense, it's not about pinpointing a specific soldier individual. And I don't think that there are Israeli generals waking up in the morning saying, how can I make the lives of Palestinians miserable? But there is a system that for now 51 years is constantly thinking, how can we maintain the status quo? Or I would say, let's take it a step further, how can we entrench it? The Israeli occupation, I think, has built in the mindset of the Israeli society a false equation that basically says it's a zero-sum game. It's either us or them. And in order for us to feel secure, they have to feel insecure. And when you have an entire army, or a vast majority of the Israeli army, which is in charge of maintaining that military control, so the mission is control. The symptom is exactly what you talked about. Now, those symptoms will not disappear until we end the occupation. But the problem is not only how you act once you enter a house. That's exactly why I mentioned the straw widow. Because for me, the issue is the fact that you can enter any house. It's not how you smile or treat a Palestinian in the checkpoint, but the fact that you can control the lives of millions and control these checkpoints and pass permits.
Can you afford the luxury of this delicate conscience of yours when there is, whatever you say, there is a struggle which involves violence on both sides between Israel and the Palestinians?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm not a pacifist. And I was shot at. Friends of mine were injured. Soldiers of mine were injured. Good friends of mine were killed as well. It's not about being naive. It's about looking forward and understanding from our personal experience that in every house, in every checkpoint, in every land grab, in every unauthorized settlement that was just approved, for example, by our Minister of Defense just recently, we are dooming us and our neighboring Palestinians who are not going anywhere to another cycle of this. And in that sense, I'll just say one thing. I think that there is a very important distinction between a long-lasting conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict definitely has two sides to it and a lot of bad blood. But in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there's one issue, the Israeli occupation, that is one-sided. And it's our responsibility in that sense to want to end it and to end it.
But the point is, you're politicizing the IDF. You're quite plain that you believe, as a political objective, the occupation must be ended. And yet, day to day, the IDF has to be peopled by soldiers who are not political, but who loyally follow the orders of their commanders. And the Chief of Staff, Gadi Eisenkot, said back in May 2016, he said, the IDF soldiers must know beyond a shadow of doubt that the whole nation supports them and stands behind them, even when there are differences of political opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to criticize the IDF.
Well, that's exactly what you do.
No, so I'll tell you.
I mean, just on his own words, right? He said, land grab. This is all his own words. Land grab, stealing, taking over, this illegal. This is all his words. We don't even say it, right? This is all his words, right? And I mean, yes, go ahead. I
like the reporter, how he tries to create a myth out of the story that if these claims are true, and many people believe it's not true, that a lot of IDF soldiers are evil. And I like the response of the soldier. He said, I was evil. I did this thing. Forget about the paper. Forget about the reports. I'm telling you, I was evil. I don't think it's easy for any human being to go on air in front of millions of viewers and say, I was evil. I did these things. I looted, I killed, I did. So it's not a myth. It's the truth. But sometimes your eyes are covered and you just don't want to admit that this is the truth. And this is the problem with media personnel who are not neutral, who are trying to drive the story in another direction. He's trying to drive the story that the soldier is not loyal to his country. The soldier is, creating a big problem out of something that is maybe one or two cases. He's trying to create that, there is also violence on the other side and so on. But all of this is not true. And they know it. The soldier was saying, don't look at the symptoms. Look at the cause, which is occupation. If we end the occupation, these symptoms will disappear.
Yes.
And, he said also something very important, that the ideology that is fed into the army, it's either us or them. So the idea of us being together with them is never there. So they've always deceived the world by saying that we propagate a two-state, resolution and so on, or a state for the Palestinian and state for the Jews. But this is not true. This is what they are saying now openly, that it's either us or them. And the soldier said something very important when he said in the beginning, our neighbors, the Palestinians, are not going anywhere. So they will continue remaining there. So no matter what happens, you cannot eliminate the Palestinians. You're talking about millions of people. Yes, you were successful. Millions of Palestinians leave their land, fleeing the oppression, but millions remained and are holding on to their land. So what are you going to do about it? SubhanAllah.
Let's just continue a little bit more, inshallah, and then we'll watch that last part, inshallah. Bismillah.
Why I don't think that's what I do. What I do is I criticize the mission the IDF got to carry out. And in that sense, the problem that soldiers are facing has to do with the decisions of the government. You can be a right-wing soldier or a left-wing soldier, but you're carrying out a mission of the most right-wing, messianic, religious government
But you
we've
can't
had
be an
in our
effective
history.
soldier if you look at your comrade just down the line and you know that his political views might lead him to say he won't do certain things because it's against his moral principles. Armies don't work like that.
No, you're right. You're right. But I think more importantly, democracies don't work in a way where they control other people by force for so many years.
I'm just going to stop right there and then. I mean, the interviewer just basically said, look, hold on, don't use your moral stuff. You're supposed to just be do as you instructed, just exactly that. I mean, what in the world? I mean, are we talking about, democracy, freedom of opinion, freedom of thoughts? No, if you're in the army, you just got to do it. This is the way how it's been done. This is how you're going to do it. No question asked.
And this is the difference between Muslims and non-Muslims, Dr. Firdaus. Because in Islam, you're even given the right to go against your leader if he's deviating from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's a saying in Arabic, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience to a creation when it is against the creator. So anything that is going against the law of Allah, you don't follow. Even if your parents are telling you, even if your country is telling you, even if your king is telling you, even if the army is telling you, you don't do that. And the classical example for this, Dr. Firdaus, is what Muhammad Ali did, the boxer.
Yes.
When the entire nation went and invaded Vietnam and killed a lot of innocent people, and until today, nobody knows why they went, he stood up and he said, no, sorry, I'm a Muslim. I don't have a justifiable reason to go and attack an innocent nation. Therefore, I'm not going. And they said, oh, you're betraying the army. You're betraying your country. We send you to prison. He said, it's okay. If you want to send me to prison, send me to prison. But I'm not doing this. I'm not getting my hands dirty with innocent blood. And this is the way that everyone should behave.
Yes.
You are not robots.
Mhm.
Allah created you with intellect, with a mind to think. If you're given an order and your conscience says that this is wrong, stop. No, you don't have to do it. No matter what the consequences are, you don't have to do it. Because on the day of judgment, your government is not going to be asked. You are going to be asked, what did you do? Each and every one of us are going to be alone, standing in front of Allah, being questioned for our action. So, what will you respond to Allah on that day? Will you say, oh, I was forced by my government, by my people, by my tribe, by my family? No, that's not justifiable. That's not a good enough reason for you to commit atrocities against innocent people. So our message here from this podium is wake up, and do not follow anything that is evil, and especially when it has to do with transgression on innocent people. People might forgive you, but Allah will never forgive you. So on the day of judgment,
Yes.
the punishment is going to be severe, and I just remind you, it's going to be for eternity. So whatever evil you're inflicting on these innocent people, it's temporary. It's 1 hour, 2 hours, and it's over. But the punishment that is going to be inflicted on you is going to be for eternity. And you're going to hate the day you were born, the day you committed these atrocities against innocent people.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. I mean, that's good, a lot of good points here. And I just wanted to be very clear to our viewers, whatever we said about in Palestine at the moment can be implemented. It's the same way in any other countries, any other places, just like we mentioned in Vietnam before, any other active place. We know what's happening in Africa, for example. We don't want, because the thing is, it doesn't benefit the people. The war never benefits the people. The war, and Islam didn't, very clear. You have to look after each other. You don't want any of this. There's no such thing as, what do you call it, in our term, fighting for the sake of fighting. I mean, subhanAllah, we talk about this in the last few episodes. Nowadays, I think people fight for whatever reason. They don't even know. And the way how that reporter was mentioned, basically, you don't even have to worry about it. If you're in the army, just do what you need to do and forget about anything else. That's unacceptable.
This was evident, Dr. Firdaus, in the war on Gaza, where you had
Yes.
What do you call these? Not missionaries. What's the other name? Mercenaries.
Mercenaries. Yeah.
Yeah, they are paid to come and fight a war that they have no idea who these people are, why they're fighting, what is the it just as long as I get paid, then I'm willing to kill and shoot anyone in front of me, which is an immoral thing to do. But this is the world that we're living in. Money is more important than human lives, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm just going to skip towards the end now, Sheikh, and then we'll just watch that a little bit
Sure.
more, and then
Yes, sure.
we'll conclude, inshallah. Yeah.
Inshallah.
It's not easy to be a Breaking the Silence member in these days, but with that said, there's unbelievable support within the Israeli society. It's true, we're not in the heart of the Israeli consensus, to say the least.
No, you're not. You're a fringe. You're an extreme. And it gets down to your relationship with your own country. Your country has repeatedly voted for governments which sustain the occupation. Currently, your Prime Minister says he doesn't believe in a two-state solution negotiated with the Palestinians. At what point are you going to say, I can no longer live in this country where most of the people seem to be so far removed from my own view of what is the right, proper and just solution to the conflict with the Palestinians?
Never. I'm an Israeli patriot. I love my country, and I will fight to make it a better place. The fact is that although there's a campaign against us, led by this current administration, there are thousands of Israelis who support us, including former heads of Secret Service, including high-ranking military generals, opinion makers, artists. In that sense, we are in the middle of a struggle. We're in the struggle for the essence of the state of Israel.
Isn't
I think just one more point. And I think in that sense, the fact is that the Israeli opposition and the Israeli political sphere has refrained from taking a hard line against the occupation. And that's part of the reason that organizations like Breaking the Silence have become de facto one of the only oppositions to the occupation.
In the end, you and your case are not winning the argument in Israel. I just wonder why you think that is. Why is it? Because most Israelis serve in the military. You say, oh, they're in denial, they don't want to see, they don't want to confront the reality. They know the reality. Their sons serve, they probably served themselves in the occupation. They do know the reality, but they don't agree with you.
No, but I would say this, that even though I'm a minority voice, my responsibility is to speak out. You know, breaking the silence is difficult exactly because it's against the stream, exactly because it's not easy. We knew from the get-go, we knew from the moment that each and every one of us broke their silence and spoke out, they would not be easy to accept. But in that sense, when you look around, and when you look at the Israeli leadership today, the only path that they are leading us is to a destruction of the state of Israel. And in that sense, we might be a minority. But you cannot accept to hear voices and target them or ban them as legitimate or illegitimate because of the amount of people who support them, but because of the essence of the claim. And the essence of the claim of Breaking the Silence is that we're in a 51 year of control over people who do not want to be controlled by us. That means that our future is just more rounds of violence. And in that sense, we are actually actively fighting for there not to be a solution. Tzipi Khotuveli, who you mentioned, Avigdor Lieberman, who you mentioned, who is a settler himself, by the way, Netanyahu is actively trying to make sure there will never be Palestinian freedom. There will never be any ability for Palestinians to do exactly what my ancestors did, create a homeland for themselves.
In your heart, do you accept this is a battle you are not going to win? You can fight it, and you're determined to, but you're not going to win.
I think we'll have to wait and see.
I think we'll stop there. We'll stop there.
I love his response. I love his response because it shows bravery, it shows confidence, it shows believing in the idea of what they're doing, despite the discriminate, behavior of the interviewer, because he is not in a position to state his opinion. Who are you to tell him, it's not going to happen? It's not your job. Your job is to interview him only. But I love it. I love the end. It's amazing, and despite the interviewer trying his level best to show him that he is not patriot, he doesn't love his country. Why don't you leave? You're not winning this battle. He said, no, I love my country, and because I love my country, I'm going to continue to the end.
But then again, how would he leave then? Because I presume he was born there in Israel, right? He was
Yes,
born. He was
yes.
born over there. So where did he go? Just like however the Palestinians go, right? And it's the same thing. But he has a very good point, and I think we all have to listen to what he said. He said he wants peace. He doesn't want all these things. And imagine, how can you have peace if you were to, what he mentioned before, constantly go and try to show that we are the boss, constantly harm the innocents, constantly putting pressure and fear? What's going to happen? You are going to create problems. You're not going to get peace like that. There will be no peace that way. You have to, it has to go both ways. It has to go both ways.
Did you hear him? Did you hear him when he said Netanyahu clearly stated he doesn't want a two-state resolution?
Yeah.
We didn't say that.
That's right.
They said that. So they're working very hard not to have two-state, resolution. Unfortunately, this is. He said something very important also, because the interviewer was bringing the claim that the majority.
Yes.
I'm not agreeing with you. They're still going to the army and they're still doing what they're doing, and you're a minority. But he responded in a very good way. He said that it's not about the numbers. It's about the idea, the principle. We know that our principle is right, and that's why we're going to win. And it's not about the majority. If the majority are wrong, then they are wrong. And every struggle in history was based on minority. Even the Prophet ﷺ, his struggle in Mecca and Medina, he was the minority, he was not the majority. The majority were wrong. The majority were oppressors. But eventually, the Prophet ﷺ won the battle, and the message of Islam spread from east to west. So anyone out there that he feels he is oppressed and he has a message and he has a cause, a just cause, he should go forward with it. Never mind the majority, the masses out there. As long as you believe what you're doing is right, then go ahead with it, and don't be afraid. God is on your side.
Correct. That's the last point that you made there. Essentially, you don't choose the majority side, right? You always choose the right side. Why? Because the right side, God will be with you. On the other hand, if the whole majority of the whole world is on the wrong side and God is not with the majority, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. Sooner or later, at the end of it, you'll never win. You will only win if you're on the right side. So our viewers, if you're watching this, if you find it beneficial, please forward and share. And what we discussed today, again, we are reflecting on what happened in an interview 6 years ago from today. And subhanAllah, things are being mentioned. So there are things that happened before October 7th. And these things, as you mentioned before, this happens in the West Bank. And it's away from Gaza. And what we wanted to discuss here, we wanted people to open them up. We wanted to share the news. We wanted to people to understand and reflect upon what happened here and understand the context why these issues happen. And I think the brother here, the ex-IDF soldier here, he had a very good points. And I think we should check it out, his website. I think called Breaking the Silence. And there's a lot of testimony there on the website, which I just checked it out earlier today. Sheikh, I'll give you to conclude, inshallah, a few minutes, and then we'll end the podcast for today.
At the end, we are supporters of the truth. Anyone, regardless who he is and where he's coming from and what they did, as long as they have opened their eyes to the truth and they're supporting the truth, then we are with them. We are not racist. We don't pick sides. We don't choose what faith they are or what race they are. We are with the truth against the oppressors. And this is our message. And we hope all of the free people in this world should stand up and be free and speak up the truth, no matter what the consequences are. God bless you all, and see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa maghfiratuh.